We are less than 2 weeks away from National Signing Day. Oklahoma State has apparently plucked one of the top players in the state of Oklahoma right out of OU's backyard. His name is John Kolar, quarterback out of Norman, Oklahoma. We bring in Cory Treece of Cowboys Ride for Free on the SB Nation platform to talk about this possible signing and also the entire Oklahoma State class. Cory, thanks so much for joining us. Let's start right there with the commitment at this point from the pocket passer, who's the third-ranked pocket passer in the entire nation, who's most likely coming to Oklahoma State.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me. Yeah, John Kolar's, we've had him committed for a while now, and growing up, he kind of expressed, having interest being an OU fan, and it is pretty shocking that we were able to steal that from OU, considering, the great history that they have. But yeah, he had a great season this year, and last year he came in when David Cromwell got hurt about halfway through the year, and a lot of people didn't expect him to kind of be the player he is. So he's really shot up the rankings just in the last year. But yeah, he's definitely the headliner of our class right now. And like you said, he's a four-star guy, and it was a huge gift for Gundy and Mike Yurstich.
This is an Oklahoma State program that's not going to wow anyone in regards to the recruiting rankings, but I think that's okay based on what I remember from the recruiting rankings that preceded some 10 and 11 win seasons. So just your thoughts about some of the big commits. You've got 17 thus far, some of the big commits that have come in thus far.
Yeah, it's definitely been kind of a smaller class this year. We had one of the youngest teams in the country. I think the second youngest among FBS schools, if I remember correctly. The majority of the concentration early on was on the offensive line. We had, I think, 5 total people commit from high school, and then, well, 2 high school and 2 junior college, and then we also had a transfer from UAB who was really kind of the big story recently. Victor Salako, he looks like he's going to be a really good player, and he's going to probably start week 1. But yeah, that was kind of the biggest deficiency this year, and the reason why we kind of went on a 5-game skid was the offensive line really didn't kind of play up to their potential, and they definitely saw that as a need going into recruiting this fall.
So we know about the offensive line, Cory. I'm sorry to cut you off. We know about the offensive line. Also know that you had one of the best defenses in the Big 12 and maybe one of the top 10 or 15 in college football in 2013. Lost so many outstanding Big 12 first and second team players from last year. Just talk about those positional needs that really stand out coming into the first week of February.
Well, probably the biggest need that we have right now, and what the coaches have really been focused on ever since the dead periods ended, was running back. We had Des Rowland graduate, and obviously Tyree Kill was dismissed after his little incident that he had. So the coaches have really been focusing a lot on these running backs. Last weekend we had Chris Warren, who's one of the highest rated running backs left on the board that's not committed. He narrowed down his top 4, and OSU was one of them, along with Texas Tech and can't remember what the other one was. But he's expressed a lot of interest in Texas recently, but he's also said that that's not necessarily his top choice. So both he and Jordan Stevenson, who is another guy that's uncommitted, are 2 really highly rated players out of Texas that OSU is really keying in on, along with a junior college guy that Gundy went to go visit last Thursday, Chris Carson. Really, those 3 guys. We had probably our highest rated commit up until October was Ronald Jones. He was out of McKinney, Texas, and I had been covering recruiting for Oklahoma State, all season, and stats and high school stuff, and he was just completely just destroying everybody he was going up against, and it was going to be a really big gift for OSU. And then he decommitted and recently committed to USC. and we're still kind of hoping that he might flop back to us, but obviously that's probably a pipe dream. But so really, just in the last couple months, the coaches have recognized that they need to get at least one or two running backs in this class, and we're hoping. I'm hoping that at least one of these guys that I mentioned ends up becoming a Cowboy.
Before we continue with the recruiting, Cory, you dropped that name, Tyree Kill. It just had to be a punch in the gut. I've heard about this kid. I watched him play a little bit. You didn't have a great season, so I didn't see a whole lot of Oklahoma State, but I saw some of the bigger games or parts of the bigger games. This kid was dynamite. He was a rare talent. That just had to be a punch in the gut to Cowboy Nation.
Absolutely. We went from probably the highest of high with when OU decided for some unknown reason to punt to him with just a little over a minute left in that game, and he took that kick 91 yards back to pretty much save OSU's season, send it into overtime. But we went from that and him being probably the biggest hero on campus to the next week, the incident that happened with him, and it was really unfortunate. Obviously, Gundy was put in a situation where he had to dismiss him based on all of the things that he was presented. And yeah, it was a big loss because going into next year, having Mason Rudolph as the clear-cut quarterback and a guy that is going to lead us for a couple of years, having him, as a weapon and being able to get the ball out in space to Tyreek, it would have been pretty awesome next year. But they got to move past it, and hopefully they can fill the void.
Move past it. That's exactly what I was going to say. This is a much different football program than it was even 10 years ago. You're expected to win, maybe not win huge every year, but even in a down year, go 6-6, win the bowl game, finish 7-6, finish pretty respectably in that regard. So right now, standing at 35, 45, and 51, according to three of the major services, ESPN, Rivals, and 24/7. Who are some of those guys? And maybe you already mentioned a few, but I'm going to nail you down to like 1, 2, or 3 that you would love to see come into the fold that are on the border right now.
Um, well, Chris Warren really is number one on my list, at least, the guy I mentioned before. The fact that he has us in his top four, obviously, or else he wouldn't have, really thrown us out as his top candidate. Really, if we could get him, he's kind of more of a power runner, and it's not a type of running back that really we've had in quite a long time. He's kind of guy that would immediately be able to come in and take the featured back or tough yards. Really, outside of him and Jordan Stevenson, who's uncommitted, and also a guy named Cedric Ware, I think that's how you pronounce his first name. He's another running back that's committed to USC right now, but OSU is trying to get him to flip since Ronald Jones flipped to USC. And they're trying to get him in this weekend, actually, for an official visit. And I haven't really been able to confirm whether or not that's happening or not. But he's been listed on several other sites as a potential candidate to possibly flip that's already committed to another school. So, I've been talking a lot about running backs, but we're pretty set on other positions, having the offensive line, the two big safeties, Kenneth Magruder and Kevin Henry, that they're kind of on the top of the list as far as ratings are concerned. So with it being such a young team, especially on defense, we don't have a lot of voids to fill with departing seniors. It's really just that running back core that we need to get nailed down.
We always have tons of rumors at this point in the game. Again, less than 2 weeks away. Social media gets involved. Any crazy stories to let us know about? Anything going on that's really running the rumor mill at this point?
Honestly, it's been kind of quiet. Gundy has uncharacteristically opened up to the media ever since that Bedlam win. During the season, he was kind of antagonistic towards people. I think a lot of it had to do with just the losing losing so many games in a row was kind of wearing on him. But I mean, as soon as we beat OU and we got into that bowl game, and then obviously winning the bowl game just kind of carried the momentum going into next year. That's really been the biggest storyline in the program is just Gundy's kind of rejuvenated, I guess, presence that he has now with the media and just being optimistic about next year, and kind of a lot of the media members that cover OSU just kind of said that he's like the Gundy of old back whenever he first started at OSU, and just kind of seems like he's a lot more excited now and really excited about next year.
And we know the coach can get excited. We've seen that in the past, most famously, of course, at the podium. All right, Cory Treece,
Definitely.
he is the recruiting guy. Cowboys Ride for Free, getting us all set up for National Signing Day for Oklahoma State in Stillwater. Cory, we appreciate the information and the insight, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.